But you've never seen Johnny hit Amber?
That's correct, and I've affirmed it to everybody that I've spoken to. I've been explicit about that.
And you've never seen Johnny hit any woman?
Correct.
Do you recall having a conversation with Rocky and Amber after Mr. Depp and his security personnel left the building, but before Officer Science and Officer Haddon arrived?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
You'll have to forgive me again. My memory of the exact sequence of events that transpired after all this is a little foggy. If memory serves, Amber was damn near catatonic after all this. We had gotten her into PH1 so we could deadbolt the door and keep her safe until he left. A few minutes thereafter, I had gotten a little bit of a rundown from Raquel over what had transpired. Raquel got her to call her lawyer, Samantha Spector, to find out what to do. And if memory serves, Samantha's recommendation was that we immediately put together a contemporaneous, matter-of-fact statement together of what had transpired that night. And that ultimately was up to Amber as to what she wanted to do with the police or whatever it may be.
Are you aware that Amber Heard spoke to Officer Science and Officer Haddon that evening?
Yes.
Were you present when she was speaking to them?
No.
Did Amber file the complaint that night?
No.
Did the police arrest Mr. Depp?
No.
Did they issue a warrant for his arrest?
Not that I'm aware of.
Mr. Drew, let's turn for the moment to May 22nd, 2016. Did you see Ms. Heard at all that day?
Yes.
When did you see her?
At various points throughout the day. If memory serves, Raquel had committed to a jewelry show somewhere, I want to say it was downtown, I might be mistaken, it might have been out in Venice, somewhere in Los Angeles. So she was out most of the day, so I cleared my schedule to be able to be there should Amber need anything. If memory serves, either her attorney or somebody in her group had a friend come over with a locksmith to change the locks just to be safe. And I was there to make sure that happened and just, like I said, be there for Amber should she need anything, just so she wasn't alone. When you saw Amber on May 22nd, you don't know whether it was the morning or the afternoon. Is that right? It was sporadic throughout the day. I think it was some point late morning and throughout the afternoon.
When you first saw her, did you notice any marks on her face?
Yes.
Describe the marks, please.
To be very honest with you, I don't actually remember which side of her face it was, but I do distinctly remember there being a red mark and a small bruise on her cheekbone, and red marks just above her eyebrow and to the right side, or to the side of her eyebrow.
Did you see any swelling?
A little bit.
Can you remember anything else? Did you see marks anywhere else other than the ones you've described?
No.
Did you ever notice anyone visiting Amber Heard at night while Mr. Depp was away?
During the time that I was living there?
Yes.
Yes.
On how many occasions?
I wouldn't even be able to estimate.
Was it more than 10?
Yes.
Was it more than 20?
Yes.
Was it more than 30?
Yes.
Was it more than 50?
Again, I can't really speculate. I was there for quite some time.
When did that first occur?
I mean, I'm not privy to her comings and goings, and she had other friends than us that were coming to see her. So.
And again, to be specific, I'm just talking about visitors at night when Mr. Depp was away.
Again, I can't say with any specificity.
When did that first happen that you were aware of?
I mean, I would say pretty early on, but again, there's no context to it. The other consideration that I would say is that the hallway between all of these penthouses was public right-of-way going to the pool. So my understanding of people coming and going, it might have been the public, it might have been residents, or I'm sorry, not public, it might have been residents in the building, I can't really say with any specificity.
Who was Elon Musk?
Elon Musk was a gentleman that Amber dated intermittently following the restraining order.
When did can you recognize Elon Musk?
Yes.
When did you first see Elon Musk at Penthouse 3?
I'm not quite clear exactly, but I want to say it was about 3 to 4 weeks after the restraining order was filed.
But while Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard were still married, correct?
Yes.
After May 22nd, 2016, did you ever see any marks on Ms. Heard?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Would you please describe, as far as you can remember, what cleanup efforts were undertaken and by whom?
Well, myself. In Penthouse 3, there was a number of pieces of broken glass and items strewn about the counters and the floor in the kitchen. Only in the kitchen, sort of around the kitchen island. In the hallway outside of the penthouses was quite a bit of spilled wine. I don't believe we dealt with that at all. And then in PH5, all of Raquel's things had been strewn about pretty dramatically, so we did our best to sort of put that back together and pack everything back up. And there were, things like piles of books and picture frames were broken, or piles of books were strewn about, and picture frames were broken and things like that. We just picked the glass up off the floor so the dogs didn't get hurt, and I think we left everything else for the time being.
Did you actually see who strewn about? That's not the right verb. But did you actually see the person who threw her clothes around?
I didn't witness firsthand any destruction of any kind.
Are you aware that Ms. Heard alleged that Mr. Depp hit her on or about December 15?
Yes.
What, if anything, do you know about that incident?
So my recollection of that is Raquel and I had come back to the penthouses from where I don't recall specifically, sometime, I want to say late afternoon, early evening. And Raquel was supposed to meet with Amber as soon as they came back. Amber had not been responding to her text messages for some time, so we let ourselves into PH3 together to go check on her and make sure everything was okay. When we came in, the kitchen was completely, I wouldn't say it's trashed, but it was out of order enough for something to be off. And then when we turned the corner, on the section of counter next to the kitchen sink, there was something written on the counter, and I don't know, I can't remember what material it was, and to be honest, I can't actually recall exactly what was written. It was something very, very weird, like all was such a fraud or something akin to that.
You never saw Mr. Depp strike Amber Heard on or about December 15, 2015,
No.
correct?
Correct.
Did you see Miss Heard that night?
Yes.
Did you notice any bruising or other signs of injury?
Yes, pretty significant.
What did you observe?
I noticed specifically she had pretty significant bruising on the inside of both eye sockets, kind of extending down the bridge of her nose, and her forehead was red.
But you have no first-hand knowledge of how that injury occurred.
That's correct.
Are you aware that she Amber Heard made a television appearance the next day?
Yes.
Do you ever see Mr. Depp take drugs, either prescription drugs or drugs that were not by prescription?
Yes.
How many times?
I can't speculate on the number of times, to be honest.
There was some questioning before where people were asking you about emphasizing how many times. Is it fair to say more than 10 times?
Yes.
Fair to say more than 20 times?
Yes. But to be very honest with you, he was also a very private person, and a lot of that behavior was done in private. I didn't witness a lot of it.
Did you ever hear Mr. Depp yell at Ms. Heard?
Yes.
Can you tell me when you recall that and what happened?
I can't say with any specificity the number of times. There was one incident specifically that I do recall. Myself and Raquel were vacationing in France with the two of them, and they were we were staying separately, separate houses, and the two of them were having a very, very loud argument with one another, screaming at each other that we could hear through the walls.
How long do you recall approximately that yelling lasted for?
I want to say that I witnessed personally, maybe 30 minutes.
Did Mr. Depp often wear heavy rings that you noticed on his fingers?
Yes.
More than one?
Yes.
And were they large? Is that fair to say?
If memory serves, yes.
December 15, 2015, Los Angeles, California, which is the next page. And you'll see in paragraph 23, in case it refreshes your recollection, there's a specific reference to Rocky. What knowledge do you have about this incident?
Specifically, coming home, I want to say late afternoon, early evening, it was myself and Raquel. Melanie was not present. Amber had not been responding to Raquel for some time. They were supposed to hang out, the three of them. So we let ourselves into PH3 to check on her and make sure everything was okay. When we came inside, the kitchen and the dining table were a mess. Like the kitchen island area, things were strewn about outside of the norm. And there was something written on the counter adjacent to the kitchen sink, like I stated previously, something like, "All is such a fraud," or something in that vein. We realized something was off right away. Raquel told me to go back to our place and then booked it upstairs. I didn't hear from her for about 10, 15 minutes, which I was obviously concerned about.
The incident you just testified about, you talked about the kitchen being, with Mr. Chu, about the kitchen being a mess on one incident. Is this the same incident you were referencing?
Correct.
Earlier? Okay. So I think you testified that when you came in, you saw some writing in the kitchen. I've showed you a document, which is a photograph that we've marked as Drew 10, and asked you if that's what you were referring to earlier.
Yes.
And did you come to learn, Mr. Drew, who had written this language? Is this the kitchen? Withdrawn. Is this the kitchen counter?
It's the kitchen counter next to the kitchen sink.
And this is in the apartment of Ms. Hurd and Mr. Depp?
PH3.
And did you come to learn who had written these words on the kitchen counter?
I'm sure there'll be an objection to this response, but I knew it's his handwriting.
When you use the preposition "his" in that answer, you meant Mr. Depp?
Correct.
And why? And are you saying that you recognized at the time that it was his handwriting?
Correct.
And why do you? Well, how were you able to recognize Mr. Depp's handwriting?
He has a very unique mode of penmanship.
And you had seen that mode of penmanship previously?
Many times.
Can you read what is written on the countertop in Drew 10?
Why be a fraud? All is such bullshit.
Is this, Drew 10, an accurate photograph of what you recall seeing that day?
To my recollection, yes.
Was anything else written on the countertop?
Not that I remember.
When you saw these, when you came into the apartment and saw the mess in the kitchen and saw these words written on the countertop, were you concerned?
Immediately.
And what were you concerned about?
That something very, very bad had happened.
And that's in part because you assumed immediately that Mr. Depp had written these words?
Yes.
Can you read, you read into the record what it says. Just correct me if I'm wrong. That little kind of red thing there in the top right-hand corner of the photograph, do you recall, is that a lipstick? Part of a lipstick?
Couldn't tell you.
Okay. At the time, did you have any idea of what this was written in? Do you recall?
Looking at it, I can answer. I don't recall from the time, so I'm going to say no.
And I take it, Mr. Drew, you didn't take this photograph?
No.
Do you know if Rocky did?
I don't know.
And when you say you were concerned that something very bad had happened, what do you mean by that?
You walk into somebody's house and it looks like they vandalized it and things are amiss, or if things are strewn about, it doesn't portend anything good.
Did you go anywhere else in Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard's apartment other than the kitchen that day?
The living room later.
So, again, to the best of your recollection, I understand it's a long time ago, and I understand these aren't exactly happy memories, but can you tell me chronologically what happened? You let yourself into the apartment, you saw this. Just tell me the story again, to the best of your recollection of what happened when.
How I remember it is that like I said, we came home late afternoon, early evening. Hadn't heard from Amber in some time, which was out of character for her. Let ourselves in to go check. Saw that written on the counter. Saw the kitchen amiss. Raquel looked at me and said specifically, "Go back to our place. I'm going to go check on her." Bolted upstairs. I was sitting over in PH1 in our apartment waiting, and I heard from her. Again, I don't remember exactly. I want to say it was about 10 or 15 minutes later. I really don't remember what my response was. I don't remember what transpired after that, other than there was some time that she was over there. I don't remember when or even if Melanie came over at any point during that evening.
What do you recall about that?
And I remember it specifically because she had pretty significant visible facial injuries and didn't know if she was going to be in a state to do it, or didn't know whether she was even going to have the physical appearance to be able to do it.
Okay, when you say these things, first of all, she in those statements is Amber Heard, correct?
Yes.
Did you see Ms. Heard's face that day?
Yes.
Do you have good vision?
I didn't have glasses and I didn't need them then, so yes.
So I'm handing you a document that was marked as through 11. You can see from the top page it was attached to Ms. Heard's affidavit declaration as Exhibit 13. And I want you to look at the photos of Ms. Heard's face and tell the jury, Mr. Drew, if those were consistent with what you observed on her face that day.
It is. I was with Raquel when she took the pictures.
And the pictures were taken on Raquel's iPhone or photo camera?
To my recollection, yes, they could have been taken on Amber's phone, so there wouldn't be any potential accusation of bias or anything like that.
And you described earlier to Mr. Chu that there was, as I recall, kind of color under both of her eyes.
Yes.
And I say her, I mean Ms. Heard. If you look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 photo, this one, I'm going to hold it up.
Yes.
Did you personally observe that day this injury on Ms. Heard's face in December 2015?
I did.
And you said before you were there when Ms. Pennington was taking the photos?
Yes.
There's a couple more photos in there. It looks like there's a busted lip. See those photos?
Yes.
Do you recall seeing that personally on Ms. Heard's face that day?
Honestly, I don't remember, and without looking at this photo, so I'm more comfortable saying I don't know.
Okay. Mr. Drew, were you there? Do you just refresh your recollection? You were there when all of these photos were taken, or just the photos of the face?
I can't say definitively.
Okay. But there's some photos you were there for that are here.
Correct.
But at least some of the photos in Drew 11, you recall being there and personally observing Ms. Pennington take them.
Correct.
And are you aware of any efforts by Rocky or anyone else to manipulate the photos that were taken that day with Photoshop or any other method of changing a photograph?
If I had any knowledge of that or even suspected it, this would be a very different interview.
It's a deposition, but yes.
Or a very different deposition, whatever.
I'm going to turn now to the incident on April 20th.